a lot, but
Yeah,
that's
I don't.
kind of where everything started.
It's a fucking moose, dude. He's like, fucking listen to me. So I always picture when dogs do that. They're just like,
I'm your kid.
It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bourbon with Friends. Myself, Adrian, and Martin are here to talk about whiskeys from around the world and how a bourbon with friends or whiskey can change the world. How was your guys' weekend? And more importantly, Adrian, how was your first barrel pick?
It was awesome. It was all that and more, I guess. It was a single malt.
Ooh.
It was a single malt pick.
Did you hear that, Brian?
I did.
Single malt.
Cedar Ridge. It was a quintessential pick. So that was
Very cool.
it. Definitely, my horizons are broadening in the single malt world. Even more so after this weekend. It's a great place to visit. I would recommend anyone go there. The distillery tour was phenomenal. It's a really, really cool place. They're doing a lot of great things there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Can I ask? Did you get a headache the next day after you tried all those single malts?
I did not.
Okay, so there might not have been a single malt that did it. No, that's really. I think it would be funny though. Like if after this you're like, I hate them even more now. But no, that's good that you actually enjoyed it and the quintessential. We were talking about it and kind of in the background, and some of those finishes sound pretty incredible. So I'm interested in seeing like what comes out of that. So.
Yeah, I think
awesome.
I think Murphy Quint's got some stuff up his sleeve. I think he's
got something up his sleeve. That's for sure.
He's got some good things coming in the future for sure.
He's a Cedar Ridge, and for people who don't know, Cedar Ridge is out of Iowa, correct? Out of
Swisher, Iowa.
Swisher, Iowa. It's close to like Des Moines, something like that.
Iowa City, I think, is where it's closest to. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome. Is it next to the Swisher Sweet plant?
Yeah, and all the corn.
Jesus. I wasn't even gonna make a Swisher Sweet joke. Like, I wasn't even gonna do it.
Yeah. I needed to. It was there.
It was there for the grabbing, and you took it, and I appreciate
it.
So, that's awesome, Adrian. I'm glad you got to experience that with some of our other people in our group. So that was pretty cool that you got to go out there and do that. And
we made up some good trouble. No, I'm just kidding.
Ooh.
Maybe that was I don't know if that was a good
no, that was great.
That
was that beats great. Martin out on any intro he's ever done.
That's the best intro ever.
And
speaking of intros,
of good trouble.
Ladies and gentlemen, D. Robinson.
I thought we were doing that now.
Oh,
we discussed this last week.
Yeah, you're on mute, ma'am.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
How are you?
Good. Well, we're great. How are you?
I heard that nice little segue. I like that we're all about to get into a little good trouble.
Yeah.
I was hoping you would find that. I was hoping you would like that.
Good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I want to say that you guys planned that pretty well. I mean, right?
Brian was not planned.
We never planned intros.
It's never planned. That was all right off the cuff.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's flowing. That's what it's all about. Just being authentic and just getting it done.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. So
everyone is. How's this? I'm going to ask you guys a question.
Sure.
You got a lot of brown liquid behind you. I just want you all to notice that I actually wore orange today to represent bourbon. That was the reason for this beautiful orange. Because, our bourbon kind of looks like I thought they blend really well together.
You're right.
But I wanted to say cheers to all of you.
Yeah, cheers.
You as well, ma'am.
Cheers.
Oh, it's so good.
It's wonderful.
That's my
So
first. That's my first drink of the day. There we
that
go.
was my first sip as well.
Not
And
mine.
mine.
So
Um,
not Brian's though.
Brian's like, I'm an hour in.
yes, I am.
So Dee, we know that you're the founder of GT Spirits Company, founder and CEO. But can you talk a little bit more about, how that wasn't the original industry that you were in, the spirits industry. So how did it come to be? How was it born? How did you get into it?
Thanks for that question. And let me also just to say to all of you, it's just a pleasure to be here. So I really appreciate the opportunity. And, I talk about bourbon being a journey. And we all know that, first of all, just because when we put it in barrel we're to the end. But this journey is really about someone who actually left her corporate job to go and do the things that she loves, and been blessed enough to just do that in every journey and everything that I've done. And so I thought I wanted to be a chef. My mom, by the way, everyone thought I lost my mind. Just want you all to know all this education and you want to go and do this. But she, she came around because I said, Mom, I knew that I could do more from corporate America than to owning retail. And so just so you know, that landed in me wanting to be a chef. So I wanted to be a chef. And I used to cook around town with chefs. They allowed me to go into their kitchen, which was phenomenal. And oftentimes we would eat and drink. Last one was with Charlie Trotter. Many of you may know, Michelin star restaurant. But at that moment, I realized this. I said, I'm not that passionate, didn't love it. But I left there thinking I wanted to own restaurants. I've always been in the food and beverage space, just loving it. And so I've been a restaurateur for over 25 years. Many of you might have been to some of our restaurants because I own and operate restaurants in airports around the country. So a range of concepts. And then finally, it was just like I started drinking bourbon. So, this project of mine is really born from just loving the spirit. And then you'll learn that I'm naturally curious. And then one thing led to the next. And so I actually started studying being a craft distiller. I was just curious what it would take to become one. And so I've gone from the food side. I says, well, I might as well lean into the B side. And so I ultimately decided to be one. And then I figured, well, since I've studied how to do this, then why not do it? And I think, one thing I would share with people, I wrote a book called Courage by Design. And the book is really about us not living on the sidelines of life and how we would actually go out there and do the things we dream about and sometimes think about. And so it was me taking this courageous step of learning how to do it. But this bourbon too, by the way, was really about how we just show up in the world. So ultimately, I started doing my research. I also knew that I wanted to make excellent bourbon. And this was instilled, in my mom, Helen Hill, was always saying being a good child and going out there and giving 110%. But on the journey, though, was when I started looking at different distilleries, talking to different master distillers. I knew I wanted to make it in Kentucky, so let's start with that. And I'm a Buckeye, so I'm from Ohio. So the Ohio River.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's all these connections. So here we are. But it was really understanding how could I make something that was worthy of a name. I said our first objective was to make bourbon worthy of its name. And again, I wanted to be in Kentucky. And then I started, as I mentioned, interviewing folks and landed at Green River Spirits. And then this amazing man called Jacob Call. And Jacob is a patient soul, everyone, because we had a lot of tasting before I figured out. Brian, I just adore him. But he was quite patient. But more importantly, he and many of the members, like Kathy Steen, who's on our team, they knew not only about the bourbon and what I wanted to make, they also understood the mission and the purpose of this brand. And so it literally led from a love to deciding how to make great bourbon, sort of checking all those boxes. And if I'm frank, I recognize that I also had to make great bourbon. I'm a woman in a very male-dominated space. And the last thing is that you would never give them any reasons why they would say we shouldn't do this. And I always believe that they have to see it to believe it. And I hope that the joy of anything that I do, beyond bringing great bourbon with a purpose, is that I inspire other people to pursue their dreams. And I'm here in front of you all, again, truly full of gratitude, because this is what I hope to do, is talk about my love of bourbon.
Well, that was absolutely amazing.
I know. I'm like, I'm going to love this interview. I'm just going to sit and listen to you. Yeah.
Well, Dee, with everything that you've done from your past and who you contribute to how you help out the community around you is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's absolutely a stunning thing. And it was great to meet you this year. And I believe it was in February when we met at the American Craft Spirit Association Awards. So that was absolutely exciting. So I'm really happy to have you on the podcast and see you guys moving and grooving and growing even bigger and bigger. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
No, well, thank you. I'm fortunate in that regard. But we all know, I mean, you all are making contributions, and you also learn that any small effort is still worth the effort, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Even with this bourbon, it could feel overwhelming at times to think about that you want to go and make bourbon, great bourbon. But I always remember to remind myself that, remember, if you touch one, if you can get somebody to love it and bring new people into this, we won. And so I just sort of keep the bar really, I wouldn't call it low, but just keep the expectations of knowing why you're doing it, staying focused on the journey, the mission, and then everything else will sort of line up. And it did. And so I do believe in the universe. When you put good out there, good comes back. And also when you work really hard at something, we don't give up on things. And there were many times, guys, there were really reasons for me to want to give up because people tried. There were all sorts of, jagged, roads that got me to this line where I am with you all. But I also believe that that's how we learn. And one of my favorite quotes is Nelson Mandela. He says, "I don't lose, I either win or I learn." And so there were some, missteps along the way, things that I learned, but I was learning, and never ever did I ever think that we were losing this game, because I was committed to this project and committing to bringing some great bourbon to the world.
Well, I think I just found the title for our episode.
Well, I was just going to say, I just want to say something really quickly. That quote, I have that it's like engraved in a piece of wood on a block on my desk at my full-time job. So
there we go.
See how we're connected already, Adrian? I'm telling you, that's amazing. It's amazing. It's a great quote, but isn't it a great reminder? Because I think people are not we're doing what we love, right now. Yes. There are people thinking, I wish I could do any of the things that we are doing. And they're just sitting there worrying about what could go wrong versus thinking about what could go right. It's interesting to me that sometimes that's where we are. We're so busy thinking what could go wrong. Why don't we spend more of our time thinking about what could go right? I think that will lead to a lot more success, a lot more people feeling actually more joy and happiness in their lives. But we can get them there this one sip at a time. How about that?
Yes.
Oh, damn it. So many good things now.
We have so many titles.
It really is.
That's right.
It's going to be difficult. So, Dee, I do have one question for you. Can you tell us the origin and the background story of what named it Good Trouble and where the logo came from?
Great. Martin, you have something special there. I'll talk to you about that later, but because you just showed me something. Well, first of all, a lot of people know Good Trouble from John Lewis, and I was certainly inspired by him. And he talks about getting in trouble, necessary trouble. And but I also have to share this story. How many of you are the oldest in your family? Who were the troublemaker kids? Anybody? Yeah, Adrian, I had a feeling
I was definitely the troublemaker.
I'm a troublemaker, but I'm not the oldest.
I'm not the oldest, but I'm definitely a troublemaker.
I was the oldest.
Well, listen, I had an older sister. Her name was Pearl. In fact, I have a piece of jewelry that's got a pearl and our GT logo on it. My sister man, when my mom told her to go right, she went left. I mean, and it was amazing. She just went. I said, look, so I'm a twin, everyone. So 10 years later, twins show up. And they don't come with operating manuals. And my sister, first of all, my first one, my mom was like, look, and she would say to us, the only kind of trouble we could get in was good trouble because my sister got into all the rest. So that's actually how good trouble came about.
Nice.
Honest to God.
I
But it was
love
also
that.
important. Yeah, but here's what's also important. It was the late 60s, guys, and the world was not necessarily kind. And it was my mom teaching us how we had to show up. So good trouble, I always say, and I tell our team, we're building a global lifestyle brand. Good trouble is about how we show up in the world. That is, how are you going to act? That is what good trouble is. Again, my sister knew all the other kind, and she was a great example of what I should not do. But that's really the genesis of it. But I also understood what it meant to people, and I had to honor John Lewis and also when you think about this bottle, I'll pick it up. I mean, there's a story on all of this, and that's the name. I was also inspired by the Statue of Liberty, saying there's liberty for all, but we don't have liberty for all. And so this is Lady Liberty, and we're going to tame this raging bull of hate, misogyny, and racism, and we're going to do it through a spirited conversation. So when you look at that, that's what you're seeing right now. And then the other reason I wanted to show you the bottle, there's so much about this bottle that I love, and the reason I chose this bottle, we stand on big shoulders. This is about the shoulders we stand on. And so this is all about this. And even the GT logo, if you see the G, the T inside there, they're equal signs. This is about equity, equality in this world. So and there you go. That's right. But this was about the things that we can live, how we make the world a little better place. And so it was also remembering that we have a debt to pay, and this torch is also carrying it forward. And we know when we're in that relay race and we're passing it on, hopefully we've done something to help others. I talk about what my true mission in life is about is shortening the runway to success for others. I don't want others to take as long as I had to get here. But you know what, also all of you doing, and this is why I'm grateful for you all. When I heard that you all invited me on, I was excited. You're shortening the runway as well, because when we talk about bourbon, there's a lot of folks who still are not loving the spirit that we love. The more we talk about it, all the beautiful notes and all the things that we love about it, we're going to bring more people into the category. And even speaking about Jacob and all the things that I was testing, I wanted something I knew bourbon lovers would love. But I also wanted to grow and think about growing the category, because a lot of people don't like that heat. How do we give them something that's satiny? I mean, you're now drinking it and saying, why? I can do that. And I get excited about bringing new people into bourbon. So that's my thing. It's like, hey, you sure you don't drink it? I'm convinced that I can convince most, maybe 9 out of 10 people that all of a sudden say they weren't. I can convince them to do it. And there's joy in that for me, because when you really learn to teach them how to taste it, and we all on this screen know how to do that. Everyone doesn't. But that journey of just watching someone start to love something that like we love. And that's why I say you're helping people as well get there a lot sooner than they might have on their own. So I'm really grateful for you, but that's what I'm also hoping to do with this brand.
No, that's
That's amazing.
Yeah, like I mean,
taking notes.
it's kind of speechless. I've been taking notes too. I have been, but just what I don't know. It's clear there's been a lot of thought put into this, and I absolutely love everything that it stands for. I can't even say. I don't know. I have no words. It's very. I don't know.
B, you're leaving us speechless.
Yeah.
Well, you guys
I don't even know what to say. It's
no,
very
you
much
guys,
the
you
kind of
guys are
person
way
I
too.
am.
You guys are way too kind. But this is the joy that we have. This opportunity to drink some great spirits and hopefully stir up some spirits, get people in trouble. And remember, we're all responsible drinkers. That's also. But think about it. Good trouble is responsible drinking, right?
Yes.
Because think about it. You want to get in trouble. You want to get in good trouble. Bad trouble is when you drink way too much. We're not encouraging that. This is something to savor and enjoy. It's just like an amazing meal. And bourbon to me is an experience, so it should be enjoyed that way. So it's all the good stuff that we love about this space.
Oh, 100%.
And so, just because I had this, and this is, I guess, less about the artwork of the label. And one thing that I really love, about modern all alcohol bottles, we're a bourbon, obviously whiskey centric podcast. So, one thing I really have been liking a lot, from both a design and a marketing standpoint, is QR codes on bottles. I think it's such an important aspect of both transparency and opening up a world where people can be like, oh, well, where's their website? It's not just about even just having it printed on the label anymore. It's about giving them access to it. So how is that always something you want on the label, and how important do you see it as bourbon and marketing?
You know what? It's interesting. Martin, it's such a great question. I was literally blown away because I studied bottles, whether wine, any kind of, there were no QR codes. I mean, like, we missed this opportunity to engage a consumer by one small thing. And guys, there was nothing out there. I mean, when I studied, you also notice that I put the mash bill on the front of the label.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk about bourbon being both art and science. And I know you guys understand that. But even thinking about the fact that we had a high rye, and knowing that, when I was thinking about 92 proof, right, that I wanted to make sure we created something that was beautiful in cocktails. But to your point, just thinking about a small thing like that to engage.
Yeah.
Because, and think about all the new brands out there, but you have a customer right at that moment, and we in the transaction. I wanted to figure out ways that we expand and really engage, and that was really why. But there was no one out there doing it at the time. I couldn't find one, and so that was really about engagement more than anything. Is just understanding, how do we want to tell a story? How do we want them to know what we're doing? How do we keep up through updates and all of that? Yeah. I could have put a hang tag on it. I didn't. It was on the label. And that was what was also important.
I think it is too. And you're right. I probably say this every podcast, but especially Brian and myself, and I know Adrian's starting to get into the world of single malts, but Brian and I are very much come from background of Scotch was probably our first big thing. And I have noticed it in the Scotch.
No, I actually learned that about you guys, so I was even more honored that I have Scotch guys, and they're like, "Oh, I'll bring this bourbon person on the show."
But I noticed it in that market quite a bit, that they were really adhering to that. And like, there's many companies where if you scan it, it'll take you to that specific bottle, when it was aged, where it was aged in the warehouse, what it does. And I think that's such a cool thing to open up transparency. But you're right that as far as bourbon goes, it's relatively not there. It's starting to. I have seen more and more, but it is not as much as other spirit industries. So that's why I was curious about yours specifically and the driver behind it.
Yes, thank you. Like I said, I appreciate you noticing that, but I couldn't find it anywhere. And maybe it is my marketing background that led to that. But it was, again, how do we engage? And to your point, you can change that up, whether I want to take you to a barrel pick or there's so many things you can do with that. And so it seemed to me to be a no-brainer, because again, there's this brand, you will have a story to tell, you want to engage, and I just thought it was one of the simplest ways for me to do so.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I wish more companies did it, because I'm very and you mentioned something that I was also thinking about, is that the mash bills on the front, because yes, I'm a whiskey nerd, so I'm going along the aisles, I'm looking for specific things, I'm looking for things like that. But I think the more that people do this, the more that someone who's maybe more of a casual drinker picks up that bottle and is like, I wonder what this means. And then that hopefully takes them on a journey of learning more about bourbon and what a mash bill is, and the different percentages, and why they maybe like certain bourbons over other ones. So I think having little things like that to open up transparency is such an important thing for me when it comes to whiskey.
Well, listen, I appreciate that, because it is about educating. And as I said earlier, I do think we all have this opportunity to expand the category by simply doing that. And, for those who are curious, they'll start thinking about, why is this, what is an 80 proof versus a 90? Why? What's bottle and bond? I mean, there's just this journey that we can help them get on. But I also believe that you have to help a consumer, because sometimes we expect them to go and do the work. No, the easier we can make the experience, the better the engagement and hopefully the connection to the brand.
Absolutely. So I can stop. So I can stop hanging out in liquor stores and waiting for someone to ask me a question, because that's what I do. I'll sit there in the whiskey aisle, and I'm like, I hear someone go, I don't know which one to pick tonight. I'm like, oh man, I got suggestions. Just ask me. But like, it's good for them to be able to do that, their own research as well. So
well, I guess I'm a little bit of a nerd because it's crazy because I actually like going into retail stores. And last week I was visiting the differences, and just sort of seeing and engaging with folks. And I mean, you learn. I mean, and again, maybe about my data background as well. So, we have a platform which gives me a lot of consumer data. I pray that we're responding to that. But there's nothing that beats being in the store, talking to consumers and just seeing how they see things, as they experience them. So it's something I try to get done, and it's always fun.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. I was curious about that as soon as I saw some of the things, some of the aspects of all that, not just like the artwork, but kind of like the little details. And I think it's a fantastic label.
I think another really cool little detail as I'm sitting. It's from one troublemaker to another. I was like, I like this. This is cool.
Listen, I am a sucker for embossed glass, and so like I love
well, and that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
you can.
I don't know what it is.
The more I inspect it, the more I'm finding.
Yes. What's so fun about what we're doing here is what you're also experiencing there in your hand, guys, is this idea too. We're always trying to bring innovation to the space. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, that messaging on the side of the bottle, I do think that this brand is for troublemakers, and aspiring or current ones, right? But those little details mattered. And, and if you think about it, for a small brand, look what you're looking at right now. We got all those special treatments, but we even embrace technology to help us with what you see in your hand. So we're excited about it. I'm always sort of trying to uncover what else we can do that is either innovative. Not that we're looking at technology for technology's sake, right? But how do we use it to sort of either grow the brand? How do we do things that maybe other big guys can't do that we can do because we're small and nimble? But we were looking at that. But that technology, that's a very interesting technology I used to design that bottle. You guys have one of my favorites there right now. So I'm glad that you have it, and I'm glad you could see all of that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. Can I tell you guys something? It is exciting. I love you guys picking up the bottle. And did you notice how easy it pours? And
yeah.
Well, I love even the signature.
One last thing too. You got to think about the bartender. I'm going to say, I tell people that we have 4 customers, right? You have the distributor, right? You got the consumer. Then you also have the bartender. And of course, you have all of our retail partners. But you think about it, but there are really 4 levels. And so there's me, there's a distributor, there's a retailer and restaurateur, and then you got the bartender. I just think that they are so important to this because cocktails matter. I just think when you think, and again, I'm a restaurateur, so maybe I'm a little biased. So all the bartenders out there.
I'm a bartender.
Okay, listen.
Also,
yeah. You'll love this too, Adrian. I'll just send this over and get your opinion on it. But I'm developing something that's using AI, which I think would be an amazing tool for a bartender. Oh yeah, I'm thinking about how we help you while you're at the bar, creating things. It's also for the consumer. So at times, you don't really know how to make a drink, and I talk about channeling that inner mixologist. People want to make great meals. They want to make great cocktails. And so you might say, I only have these ingredients. And so the idea is to create something that you can just plug in. I have these things that help them then craft the cocktail for you. So I'm actually writing a bourbon cocktails and conversations book because I have a cookbook. So now I figure I needed a cocktail book. But it's just thinking about helping people on the journey. And it's the same thing we were talking about, right? With the QR code. I truly believe that's why we see all the cocktails. but do we really help a consumer make it easy for them? Like the Troublemaker Sour, I love, but it's simple. But we also collaborated with a celebrity mixologist to help us craft beautiful ones because people want something unique. I want something I can still not make always at home, but I'm always about also sharing that recipe as well.
Right.
I want people to come home. But the other thing that's important about that, though, how many got in the cocktail at the bar and you went home and it didn't taste the same? A lot of people don't understand that they aren't using the right bourbon. If you aren't using a higher proof bourbon, it's not going to have the rich.
Right.
So it's helping people understand how to do that and why. So I'm always just wrote an article about just that. It's like why high proof, bourbons matter, to your tasting experience. And 92 for us was just the right balance. So I could still get that silky smoothness and, making sure there was a broad, appreciation for the spirit.
So since we're kind of touching on, you talked about it being 92 proof. I noticed obviously that the mash is got 21% rye. Can you talk about why you chose kind of the ratios that you did and went with a little bit higher rye?
Well, it's a little bit like I said in that when I started tasting all these bourbons, I wish you could see my table because I probably had one nearby, and Jacob might be sitting there like, no. And then I would taste this and it didn't fall on my palate. And but ultimately, the rye, as we all know, that's very smooth. I think that high rye helps that. And I wanted that. I didn't want there to be again all that heat, because I know for a fact, people that said this earlier, that people will not drink this beautiful spirit sometimes because they had a burn. It's like that first cigarette, right? Nobody really liked it. And so, and then most people force themselves to drink. I mean, think about it. They force themselves to learn how to. Nobody liked the first cigarette. I'd be hard pressed to have anyone tell me, but you force yourself. And I think bourbon to some is the same, but most will say, I don't like it. Well, I didn't want people to say they didn't like it. I wanted them to say, wow. And then you already know about those beautiful caramel notes. Once that gets on the palate, and of course, the nose on this thing is beautiful. But I knew that we get them there, then we actually had them drink it and then take a moment to savor it. It's like, oh yeah. But I literally have convinced, and women in particular, because they will say not as many are drinking bourbon. Well, let me remind everybody, they thought your grandma was drinking bourbon. Y'all thought that was tea in her teacup. No, that was not tea. You know it, right? It was not tea.
I don't doubt it for a second.
No, my grandma
That's right. They were kind of happy. They got really happy after that, right?
Yeah. No, my grandma's she's long gone, but she was Scottish, so she would always tell us that there was scotch in the glass. She didn't hide it at all.
Martin's parents are both Scottish.
Yeah, they're from Scotland. So I always just assumed they were drinking is kind of like what I would do. So yeah, and I was never wrong.
Probably you were drinking it before legal age, too. Probably, Martin.
I would never do that. That's crazy.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. No, of course not. I don't want them to come and arrest your parents and after the broadcast.
No, yeah. I mean, I never stole a bottle of my dad's Glenfiddich 12 from his liquor cabinet when I was about 13. I didn't do that.
How he's rolling his eyes back, and Brian is not. He's not believing.
He doesn't believe it.
Well, no, he's. I'm just gonna shut up.
Yeah.
I have so many more comments that I'm just not gonna say.
Brian also comes from a family of Scotch. Yeah, he also has a lineage as well.
Oh my! So they come by it honestly.
Just tell.
Yes. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Door.
I know.
Yeah.
Door.
Yeah.
I told you guys I did my homework, but yes. But you guys are doing things that you love, and obviously things that was always sort of part of your life. And it came natural to us. But again, think about what we all can do together. And this is why I love doing things like this. There are going to be people who I hope will listen to this. And if nothing else, be curious enough to be willing to say, let me think about it. Let me give it another try. right? And and there's so many things that we can do with bourbon. But again, I said this earlier. I did truly want to use bourbon as a tool, and again, I mentioned that I wanted to be a chef, but when we think about when we break bread, when we drink, we find that we're more alike in those moments. Those are beautiful moments. And then, we're here right now connected by bourbon. And all I do is see what is great about you all and what your talents, and that's what I think we can all sort of celebrate. And then I also want people to have difficult conversations with me. Have a question and with no judgment. Let's just talk about it. And I'll tell you, the first day I was down in Owensboro, when we were about, I guess we were actually up north, and we were about to bottle, and I came across these men at at the hotel. And I remembered he asked me a question that, somebody might be challenged by, but there was nothing other than grace and compassion. And I answered this question, but he just didn't understand. Here I was in bourbon country, and I was making it. And it's like, why do you want to make bourbon? And I had said that I call myself an African American. And he said to me, well, why? And I don't go around saying I'm a European American. But in that moment, I gave him an opportunity to understand why I did it, and so I do honor that's that heritage. But at the same time, it's part of who I am. And so I define that.
Yeah.
Others may assume though about their heritage. We just heard about people being Scotch, but the joy in that moment was that there was an open heart, open mind, and I just talked to him. And then he actually, after I explained this to him, he was like, oh, yeah, I get it now. See, that's the beauty, because if we can forget about being offended by something and recognize it in some ways that is literally just somebody trying to understand, because sometimes those comments are just that I'm well informed. I use it as an opportunity to say, here's why I did it. And he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And guys, we went on to drink more bourbon because it was kind of fun. But it was interesting that it happened that day, the first day, literally, of bottling, and I come to that, and it was. I think it was divine order in many ways. And
I was going to use the word divine.
Yeah. Right. But it was the day of me doing this, and I remember thinking, if this lovely spirit can bring us into conversations about whatever, cheers.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
No question.
So it makes me wanna ask if there's been anything else as a woman, and specifically a woman of color, that you've encountered that you've had to manage or deal with.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I'm going to speak. Look, this is bourbon with friends, and I will say this: this is a huge category, and it's growing.
Yeah.
And I don't allow anyone to put us in a box. There's room for a lot of folks, but it's natural to compare me to one person out there. I know you know who I'm referring to, and I've just said, look, I applaud her efforts because she showed the world what was possible by building a unicorn.
Yeah.
But no one ever says this to anyone else, whether it's, all those amazing brands on your shelf. I bet you not one person have ever said, oh, I compare you to one person. So, that thing is
right.
But that's another opportunity for me to help them and others recognize this is a space for any and all. And I hope that my presence here will demonstrate that, yes, you don't have to have one and done. Just because one person did doesn't mean another shouldn't. There's a shelf that's right now that at least there's got to be 60 bottles in your shelf and there at least. And we're all out here trying to hopefully bring some spirit to the spirits, So I just embrace those moments because, again, they're teachable moments. Not to be offended by them, but just embrace them as opportunities to bring people together. So I don't let people put us in a box because, again, I'm building a global lifestyle brand. It has nothing to do with anyone but our journey and what we can do in the space.
Yeah. I love you. I think you're great. I don't even know what else to say.
You guys are so
You're
kind.
you're
That was
you're
so cute.
you're my people, that's for
That was really
sure.
cute.
I don't know. Yeah,
Oh,
my
Adrian.
I love everything that you stand for and everything that you're saying. I'm all about all of it, every ounce of it. So
Well, I'm
these
grateful,
guys know it
Adrian.
too.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
grateful, really. I mean,
Yeah.
this is fun, and when I was, and I meant this with all my heart. I mean, this is fun to be able to do this with you. I mean, Ryan, coming full circle. Knowing what you all do. I couldn't have asked for. You guys are my first bourbon interview, so I
Oh,
love this.
nice.
Yes, this is my first.
Ooh.
I love it.
Okay, so this is a night of
Yeah.
first, right? So yeah, so
Yeah.
you guys just remember. So remember when we were all back here talking about good
Yeah,
trouble and all the things that we could do, and yeah, I mean it's fun, and and Thanksgiving is coming up, so I'm
Oh,
having
that's right.
fun talking
yeah,
about pairings. My mom's sweet potato pie, and how that works
Oh,
really well with great
Mm,
bourbon. And then, I have all
mhm.
these recipes that I thought about, and how we pair beautifully, whether it's cheeses, we just think about bourbon and food all the time. So,
I do.
but again, I think it's another way that people can learn to grow. And you probably already know this because I was actually pulling this up. I mean, there's something called a company called Tastewise, and they explore like bourbon and flavors and ingredients. And there's this one. Can you imagine? I love making brown butter, and I have so bananas, bourbon, and it's a brown butter. So I'll think about that. Bananas, brown bourbon, bourbon. It is so beautiful over vanilla ice cream. I mean, it's just great. So I've been having a lot of fun with bourbon, my bourbon sweet potatoes, candy yams, all these different things that we can do. And I find it fun. But do you know, and then they're showing up on restaurant menus, 7% of the
mhm.
restaurants now, right, have something bourbon on their menus. And then it's like they're asking for it more. So I mean, there's still a lot of upside. They're saying that the industry is slowing down. And I'll say two things about that. The answer is yes, to some degree. But I also think that you all know when it was really growing rapidly, a lot of people just came out and just put a lot of anything in a bottle. And those are not sustainable models, right? And so you're going to see that dip. And I got to make a shout out for distributors who are willing to embrace small brands like mine because honestly I thought it would be the easiest thing to do is to find a distributor, and it was turning out to be the hardest thing, or at least among the hardest. And so I'm grateful for those distributors out there who are open to bringing brands like ours into their fold. Again, they are giving us a chance. And we were also very selective because we want to work with partners. We see everybody as partners, right? We're all trying to do something. We're hoping to help your business, and you help our business. But a lot of them are just saying no. And again, I get it. They're protecting their territory, their own sales with the softness. But I do think that being able to support smaller brands and the innovation that we can bring to the space will only lead to more innovation in the larger companies. In many ways, I would say we're a great testing ground. I would embrace, if I were a large company, and I think even my own company, because this is my third startup, is to think about how what's happening at this lower level, how it could ultimately lead to things that other brands, things we do, large companies wouldn't even probably consider. And so I would say these craft distillers, it's support them. Many building brands are just on passion. If the liquid's not good, I'm going to say this, then no, because there's no reason for that. And there's a lot of people who did
yep.
that. So if they didn't commit to making great bourbon, I'm proud that Forbes called us one of the best bourbons in 2023. One of the reasons, by the way, we went to the San Francisco World Spirits. You'll love this. Back to your question, Adrian. We went to the distributor and we were saying we would love you to carry our brand. So you know what they told me to do? They told me to go apply to San Francisco, and we did. In our first year, we got a silver medal. Now, you know how competitive that is. But first of
Yes.
all, he was sending me off to do something he did not believe that I could do. Now, mind you, what I liked our double gold or gold, we're going to get there. But I was proud to know that we were in competition with the big guys. We did get from the International World Spirits, I think the IWF, guess what? We got best bourbon, second place. So, and we beat out established brands.
That's
So this is,
huge.
thank you, Brian, but there was our commitment to do that. And, that's why I'm hoping that, you guys, you really do fill me up saying that the bourbon is good, because that's the biggest joy. And even though we knew we made good bourbon, that first award came and we were like, had a new baby, right? All of a sudden, because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
God, right? But it was just that validation, and you work so hard for something. And that's why, and I really do mean this, to just talk to you guys and folks who've been in this space and loving it in the way you do, and to allow me to talk about Good Trouble and its purpose, and to change the world, to be positive change, to bring great spirits to the world. I couldn't ask for anything better, and I'm driven by that, and I pray that will allow us to grow this amazing brand, and is being on things like this will help us with that, and I truly am grateful. It's been hard, but not impossible. That's right. Hard, but not impossible.
That's great.
Well, it's nice. You actually did. You did already. I was going to ask you a question about those awards because I think that's amazing. You literally answered the exact question I had. So thank you. Now we have to take. We've had a really good conversation. Everything's been very whiskey centric.
Great.
It's we've been very passionate. Now we have to take a turn. Because I'm gonna give you some background on this question before I do it. So Adrian, on our first recording, Adrian, there was a squirrel that broke into our house, and it found the keys outside because she hides them under a rock, and it got into So I changed this.
Story gets more elaborate each time he tells it, but it's a lead in to our next question.
Yeah. So
just wait until next week's.
Yeah. So there basically was on our first recording when we first took over as hosts. I actually don't even know what happened at this point because I've changed this so many times. But basically there was something involving a squirrel. So we're like, let's ask a silly question because we can get like really deep into things, right? When we talk, because we're all big into whiskey, so we could get real nerdy. So we like to back off for half a second and just have some fun with it. So we always ask a squirrel related question. It can be anything. So that what you get to answer today is this. And again, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It's just whatever comes into your head first. It's just a fun thing. We'll get back to whiskey. Don't worry. We'll get back to whiskey. So basically,
listen, you're doing that now. Whiskey is fun. So come on, bring it on.
So how, and just kind of staying in line too with what we've been talking about is how good or bad of a time would a squirrel have if it owned several restaurants in an airport? So
you find it the next morning dead from euphoria. Like I was like I've just died and gone to heaven here, because because squirrels sort of go into like little small areas, right? And they find their way because they either get someplace and then sometimes they just cannot figure their way out. And just so you know, I thought you were going to ask me about my squirrel story because I don't know how one took this weight and then the attic, and at night I started hearing his feet. I was like, oh my God, and you sleep and you hear something and you're like, so one got in my attic, the house. However, but at an airport, they're just it's just mad hysteria because they got in one little restaurant, then they were able to get out of that small one. They went to another one, and then they were like, oh, they didn't, they left some food out for me, and then they were like, okay, they were fat, and then they were slow. They started slowing down every time they got to a restaurant, and they got to his last one. And he was like, okay, there's still one more, what do they say? Pigs get fatter and hogs get slaughtered. So they got to the last one. They knew they was just like, I've had a joy. This has been great. And there's that last one that had that big old nutty burger with unicorns on, who knows? But it was that doggone squirrel said that last one, and then the next morning they came in, feet up, but he got a big old smile. That's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
I love that. I love that so much. And that's similar what
That's a
happened when
great story.
Adrian had you had squirrels in your attic at one point too. So I don't know if you knew
Did you
that.
really?
Did not.
No, she
No,
didn't.
she
No.
did not. She was like, what is she talking about?
She didn't.
I don't even know what's
What
going
is
on
it?
anymore.
Adrian is not Adrian, it is not fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you though, when they get in and you hear some critter moving around, I'm ready to move out. I mean, because I
Yeah,
didn't
I
know what
would
it
be.
was. And you sleep and you start thinking about it, and I don't like horror movies generally anyway. So I can just
No, me
imagine what
neither.
that could be. And then it was go back to sleep, you don't hear anything, and all of a sudden you're just about to doze off and he moves again. So but hopefully that's my squirrel story.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Thank you so
He's
much.
fat, he's fat and happy and now dead.
Yeah.
Bye, squirrel.
Brian, is there a question? Yeah, here we go.
No, I'm staying quiet.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say
this is it.
yeah, no. I usually talk about eating squirrels and I get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
So
Oh. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I like
We're not
food.
gonna talk about that. We're not gonna talk about that, right?
We're not pairing bourbon with squirrels. Sorry.
Not
Brian.
yet.
Ooh, okay.
So
And that
I'm
will
gonna
not
preface-
happen on my watch at our company. So everyone who's listening at GT Spirits Company, we are a no squirrel zone.
No squirrel zone. You
We're
guys should
not allowed
you
then.
guys should put a sign up at the distillery that says that.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
gonna be
that'd be
homage to
funny.
you guys. No squirrel
No
zone.
squirrel zone. No
Bourbon
squirrel
with
zone.
friends.
Yeah.
And bourbon with friends. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Oh
So our
gosh.
next question, I kind of want to preface a little bit. My handle on Instagram has shine in it. And at the top of my bio, I have just trying to shine a light and glow in the dark as needed. And so when I was reading about you a little bit and I saw that you had a foundation called Shine Your Light, obviously I was very intrigued. So I was wondering if you could talk to me about that a little bit and tell me about it.
Oh, I was hoping that where you were going when you started talking about Shine Your Light. Ultimately, every purchase of the bourbon goes to the foundation. And I also look to do fundraisers to support the fund. But we support organizations that really are about positive change. I'll give you an example of one. I'm a trustee by the way, I'm a golfer. I'm a trustee for the PGA's foundation. And, one of the things that we do is, I mentioned the vets, so we support PGA Junior League, PGA Hope, those are our veterans, and also PGA Works, where we try to diversify the sport. But I happen to co-chair PGA Works, and I'm a big fan of getting kids to golf. And I'll share this with you. Even Wall Street Journal said that, golf is the new business skill. But remember that sign of that equality, on that bottle. I think in those moments, again, you're a golfer. The moment someone says you're a golfer, whatever perception you may have of that young man or woman will change. It's the same thing that happens when you say, "Hey, I'm a chess player." So whether white or brown or black, whatever it is, and then that moment, in a nanosecond, your perception of that kid changes. And so the work we do is about making sure that the playing field is even. And, in Shine Your Light, the reason is that because I do fundamentally believe that there's good in all of us if we choose it, though. We don't always choose the good. And so that's the light that I'm talking about. We even consider that being our tagline as Shine Your Light. Because isn't that what good trouble is? Just shining your light. And so that's why I named the foundation that, because that light is also our potential, the potential of what we can be either individually, as a family, as a community, as a world, if we choose the good. Sadly, we don't always choose that. And sometimes that's why we find ourselves with the challenges that we face in this world. But I fundamentally, truly believe that there's good in everybody. And I want to see that. And sure, people disappoint me. But I also know this, I'm not going to change who I am. It's easy to let the world influence who you are because of negativity, hurt, all of the things that could just be bad. why are we giving that control over to them? We don't have to. And these
No.
choices are on our own. And when we own them and we empower ourselves, what happened in the world has nothing to do with me. How I choose to think about it certainly does. And so being able to make sure we control our thoughts. My book is even about that. It's the conversations in the mind. We're having these internal conversations all the time. I want to help people have those narratives that are about the good. And so that's why the foundation is called that. And, I appreciate your light. But that's, absolutely the thing to think about as we do anything, actually, not just make bourbon, how we show up in the world for our kids, even. There are days when my light is dim with my daughter. Sometimes she gets into things, guys. I'm like, okay, now. But then I ask her, is that good trouble? And that's how I actually ask her about things when it's not quite what I think is ideal. I ask her that.
I like that. I like that a
Dee,
lot.
you have, wow, astounded us. And I mean, the amount of quotes I have written down on this right now, plus I've typed up in addition to that. So I have a Word document on one thing. I have another Word document here. I have these notes I'm writing down. It's absolutely astonishing from every avenue of every part of whiskey that you could think of, you have put yourself into. And you've gained the knowledge and proven above and beyond with both of these, because I'm on my third pour now.
I did sort of sneak a little more in my glass as well.
Yeah.
But I tell people I love drinking our bourbon, and that is just real. And I appreciate you guys liking it as well. But yum yum. There we go. I saw you, Martin.
Yeah, it has a really nice, like this warmth to the finish. It's not hot. It's not but it's not like a medium. I'd say it's more medium to long because I don't know. It's nice. It's kind of got a very rounded out kind of finish. Kind of very fruity on the nose, I would say. So surprisingly fruity on the nose, but not so much on the palate. Martin, do you have any notes? You're really good at this.
I am. I will say that I did actually look at the notes this time, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm guessing them just blindly. Because I was doing research and then I happened to see them. Sometimes what we'll do is like if we have somebody on, I won't look at the notes that somebody's written up, and then Adrian will try to challenge me to guess the exact notes on the.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good at it.
I can't do that this time because I did see them, but the one thing, and I swear to God, this has nothing to do with the fact that we've been talking about squirrels for about 20 minutes, but there is 100% just like it's like a nutty almond, just like kind of like floating behind, like lots of caramel, lots of caramel.
It's that caramelized wood sugar, like you're tasting, right? And then it has that finish, the tinge of spice there, but I just love the way it rests on the tongue. And, and some, it's so funny because, getting in this space and you start talking about leather, right? And, people are like, leather? I'm like, yeah, it has this sort of earthy leather that completes its complexity. And I know they're like, leather, right? People don't understand that we talk that way. And even and same here when I got started, I was like, but then I'm like, but yeah. That's exactly what it is. I mean, I get it, and but it's interesting to tell people there, right?
Yeah, I think I love leather notes and whiskey in general, and I think people immediately their mind just goes straight to like a leather jacket, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about leather tannins. Like, what it always reminds me of, I was in Cub Scouts, and I remember that we had to go and do this thing where we had to like stamp and like kind of brand leather patches. That's more what I feel like it is. It's just that tannic leather thing, more than just like smelling a leather jacket or something like that. So I think people
exactly right.
they're like, what are you talking about, leather? And it's like, hold on, it's a different kind of leather. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
I remember I was doing a write-up one time, and I was writing leather, and I'm like, people got to be turned off because they got to say she's putting leather, like maybe we're soaking leather inside the barrel and then taking it out. And, But again, it's another way to help people understand. I thought your description, Mark, was great. but I do taste that, and that's why it's hard not to describe that element, that earthy leather complexities. But yeah, I think we're again helping them how to get there. But I was one of those people before I got in this space. I'm like, I can't get my eyes and ears and head around leather, or squirrels for that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No one really can. It's fine.
None of us can.
Well, Dee, there's one last question we always like to ask, and it's our
Sure.
favorite question out of all of us. Can you give us your favorite whiskey memory? It could be from when you were a kid to where you are now to what
Oh God,
happened
I can't.
to anything.
Any spirit, even if there's a if there's a different spirit, that works too.
It has nothing to do with mine. I'm trying not to get emotional on this one. So my dad lived in Manhattan. My parents divorced early, and he'd gotten sick, but the daughter who goes and take care of her dad, and I remember he's a vet, as I mentioned earlier. We had just come from the VA hospital, and the funny thing is, he wanted some fried chicken, and I was not taking my dad to that other place to get fried chicken. So you see, I have no brand names, no judgment. I said, Daddy, really? I said, all these great restaurants in Manhattan, I'm going to take you to a place. And so we took him to this beautiful place in Gramercy. But the memory was this, guys. I had never sat down and enjoyed a glass of any kind of spirit with my dad. And in the moment there, we ordered bourbon. The first time I ever drank bourbon with my father when he was in his 80s. So that is truly my favorite one, because I remember, I actually think I posted a picture. I lost him a few years ago. But I was just remembering the joy of being sitting there with him and like drinking, it took all these years for us to sit down to have a spirit together. And it was bourbon. And so, yes, I have a picture of it at the moment. I cherish it because, again, it was, I will tell people I probably took better care of my dad in his old age than ours, but that's what we do. I was a daughter and I took care of him. And at a moment, and I love joyous moment, and we were drinking, bourbon. And so that's my favorite one. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
That was amazing.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers. That deserves a cheers.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I almost drank in that glass, by the way. Hold on, Adrian. I got to show you this. I literally, just so you know, so girls, look, I just want you to know. See, I just.
Are you kidding?
I love a good crystal
one, Karen. We were meant to be friends. I'm just going to tell you. I have younger twin siblings. I'm the oldest. I have younger siblings that are twins.
We
there
never
was
know
something
about this.
else.
Really?
There was something else that we had in common, but I didn't want to interrupt and like mess things up. But anyway, we can talk
we're
after.
Sisters. Hey, guess what? We're sisters from another mother.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, that was a great question. Thank you for that, Brian. It's a great memory. And I remember posting it, and then later I said, "Who would have known that?" I lost him, but and he didn't know about me getting into bourbon. But in that moment, so I posted it. Yeah, who would have imagined that here I am, years later, making bourbon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's one of our favorite questions, just because we've heard so many stories, and the cool thing is when it's not necessarily obviously about the person's brand, because that we've been talking about that for a while now. And what I love is learning about these little moments in people's past that help shape the brand in some ways, probably, but also just kind of help shape our journey. And like it's I think we all did this question when we first started our first episode. We kind of just introduced ourselves and we answered this question, and that was what, April. And since April, I have made It's crazy. We're almost at the end of the year. But like it's
Great.
since I've answered that question, I've made more whiskey memories, and that is the thing what this is all about. So I love that question, and I enjoyed your answer, and I think
I know the time is up, but I want to
favorite.
know what's your whiskey memory really quickly. You asked me. Can we be fast? I know we're running out of time, but I would love to know.
We can share
one
ours.
with you that's very similar. You brought up your dad. I'm very close with my father also, and I have pictures of us. I had gotten a bottle that I really, really wanted, and it was really important to me, and I made sure I shared it with my dad. So, because that's, I feel like, where the reason why I tried bourbon, because my dad liked bourbon, right? So I can completely 100% relate to your story, because my dad is the parent that I identify with the most. So yeah, I have pictures of sharing that with him, and that was a very important moment for me, just to be able to have that time. So yeah.
I told you we were sisters from another.
I think so. I'm telling you.
Right. All right, Brian, Martin, it sounds like you're ready, and I can see that Brian's thinking about it.
Brian's
so I know he's got one.
I've got, like I said, he doesn't think that much. But since, like I said, I've made quite a few really great ones this summer, but I think the one that I did at that time was, and I think this is on theme, really. We've been talking about fathers, and that's what I'm gonna do. Again, like I said, my dad, before I really got into whiskey, he was always kind of into whiskey, but he has his favorite ones, and one of his favorite bottles, like, again, is a Glenfiddich 12. And back in 2019, I went through a separation from my ex-wife, and I was not in an amazing place. So like, he came over and he brought a bottle of Glengoyne 18, which is one that I had not really experienced. And I would say that bottle not only was amazing because we got to share it, and he's just kind of was there to pep talk me and kind of bring me back from, not being in a great place, but it was also the thing that set me on this journey. I don't know that I don't know that I would be sitting here right now if I didn't get that bottle, because that bottle is like, I'm like, I've never heard of this. I've never even seen it. And then it set me on like just down a rabbit hole of whiskey. So I don't think I'd be here right now if that didn't happen.
I can see why you're in those singles, and okay, I got it.
Yeah. Wow. So that was the one I shared when we originally did this.
Okay, all right. There's some dad themes here. Okay, all right,
Brian, you got a dad one?
That's all right. You can break the mold here. That's okay.
What's a mold? Oh, no, just kidding. I mean, there's so many different stories, from working in the industry like yourself, Dee, to sharing a glass of whiskey with some other veterans, or even with my family members like you guys have. I was born into the industry, you could say. I have a few bottles that are in the basement I'm not allowed to open until I'm married or have my first child.
Or until I visit.
Wow. That's not going to happen, Martin. Nope.
I'm going to try.
Good. Yeah. Well, I don't even remember the combination to the second safe you have to get into. So good luck. But I wouldn't say I have a favorite whiskey memory anymore. And the reason for that is because of everything that we're doing here today, by sharing your story, by sharing everybody else's story in the industry, and people who just love whiskey, and hearing that's my favorite story.
That's good.
Oh,
that's good, man.
Well, that means you have a purpose in doing this, and every story goes on the next one, right? So
yes, ma'am.
I get. Yeah. So thank you for that. But thank you again, guys, for letting me be a part of your story, though. This has been fun. I didn't know what to expect. But guys, this was fun.
I loved it.
I gotta be honest, I'm on the show and I don't even know what to expect sometimes, and I do this weekly with them.
That's accurate.
I don't need to fill them all. I mean,
you're fine.
No.
But then I'm going to come back next week. I'll just listen in and just be a part of this new family, Bourbon with Friends. I got new friends and family. We should call it Bourbons with F&F. We should call it Bourbons with F&F. Friends and family. Like that. I'm gonna put a
there you go. I like that.
Yeah,
BWFF. Brian's writing it down.
Right.
I'm not saying that may be a shirt, but that might be a shirt.
But I think that would be. Oh, I like. Oh, but the thing.
Next
okay,
Thanksgiving.
I just love that idea. get the family part because he's got the family connection. Bourbon with Friends, carrot up there. Okay, I'm with you. I'll negotiate the cut later on the t-shirt
Cool.
merchandise.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect, D.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Well, merchandising is part of what we do. We have a jewelry line. Just FYI, I have to share some of
Oh,
it
really?
with you all. Because, well, again, lifestyle.
Wow.
We want it there.
I like
So,
jewelry.
we think. Remember, we have talked about troublemakers. So, like, this is trouble.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
cool.
And then I'll show you these things here. Remember I told you about my sister Pearl. So I don't know
Yes,
if you
ma'am.
can see
Yeah.
this, but this is the GT logo. I don't know if
Oh, very
there
nice.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
super
then
cool.
we have that little pearl on there, but because this is the piece that they actually designed for me. But I have the troublemaker. There's a beautiful piece. You're gonna love them, Adrian. But I also made cufflinks, by the way. Although the cufflinks and bourbon, men in their shirts done a lot of work, But we have some pins coming. But we just love people thinking about what good trouble is and like wearing it. So this is like a badge of honor, So,
I love
but
it.
I imagine
Love it.
I have to imagine there's a Bourbon with Friends pin somewhere.
Is
I
there?
don't
There
know.
may be
Do we
some
have-
getting made.
I don't know. I think
Currently.
there is some pretty good merch opportunities here, guys. I'm telling you,
A
I
lot.
see it already.
I'm not going to argue with that at all.
No,
All right,
ma'am.
Okay.
know. I need a
Well,
See,
I
we'll-
don't want to.
we'll talk offline about that.
What's that?
We'll talk offline about that.
You got it. Well, they
All
say you
right.
should never overextend your stay. I know you guys have been so generous with your time, and this has been fun. I could hang out with you guys. I could see that already. So, do you all ever get to Chicago?
I live right by Chicago.
I was just there the last 2 weekends.
Yeah,
So, yes.
I'm outside Chicago by like 45 minutes. I'm outside Chicago.
Oh, really?
I'm a little.
Yep.
I'm a
I'm
little
like
further.
Northwest
but
Indiana. So
Okay.
I'm in.
Well, if you
I'm
guys
in
are ever
Northeast Indiana.
okay. Well, you know what? I know a place that has some bourbon, more than just one. So, by the way, I think in case if you ever hear, let me
Right.
know. Or
Yeah.
Charleston, South Carolina. I also
Oh,
spend a lot of
yeah.
time in Charleston.
Nice.
Brian's
just-
in Colorado.
Yeah, I'm in the
Oh.
middle of the country.
he's in the mountains.
Yeah,
You're up in the
I'm in the
mountains.
highest
Where?
part. Vale.
Oh, okay,
Colorado,
sure.
yeah.
Oh, we have a Vail story for you. Okay, and that was another time, but I actually have a Vail story.
Nice.
Yeah, and I
All
was
right.
just in Colorado. I did the Aspen Food and Wine Show, and we did
Oh, very nice. Yep.
yeah. People we were so well. There was great shows for us. People loved the bourbon. Like, we're going to get it, but we're thrilled that they can buy it now online. We ship to 40 states. We do have a distributor now here in Chicago, so we'll be at most of
Nice.
the major restaurants are working on that right now. So, and again, because I'm in the restaurant space, the friends have come through for us here, and we're going to be working on some
Good.
opportunities at the airport as well. So we're going to spread good cheer, shine our light, and get into a little good trouble. How about that? That just
That
came.
was good.
That was a good
I didn't wait-
outro.
That was really good.
Damn.
Yeah.
I
You
know,
know
I'm
what?
going to write that one down.
Even well, trust me, we'll send it to you. Even with that,
Okay.
D, we really appreciate everything that you've done, everything
Genuinely,
that you
thank you.
continue to do, and just innovation in this industry alone and helping everybody out is absolutely amazing. And thank you for that. So I think we
Well,
should
no,
cheers
thank
you one
you.
last time.
Let's cheers.
We're gonna close this out.
Back
I
at
don't
you
have any-
guys.
Hold on.
Cheers.
I don't have any whiskey in me. Or in the
Oh,
Wait,
glass.
here, I think I
No.
need a refresh too. Hold on, give me a cheers. Hold on, we're both gonna like brush it up here a little bit.
There we go.
I got some left. I'll just finish
Yep.
this.
But look here, did you guys notice that? That's who you are. You all are troublemakers.
I wouldn't argue
I am.
with that.
No, ma'am.
I own it.
Thank you so much, D.
You already
Thank
own
you.
it. All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you so
Cheers.
very much. Truly.
Absolutely. So we do want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsor. This is 10th Mountain Whiskey, and if you do go on there, use the code BWF15 for 15% off anything at 10thwhiskey.com. Why can't I read? We'd love for you to go do that. You can get them in 41 different states through online distribution, as well as 28 states across the country through regular retail distribution. Again, 10thwhiskey.com. And I want to thank 10th Mountain Whiskey for being our sponsor on the podcast.
Thank you so much for joining Bourbon with Friends. And remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Thanks, guys. Have a great day or night wherever you're at. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at BWF Podcast. Thanks for listening.